Everybody, welcome to another installment of Show Review with Mike G, the show of life, the show of gin, the show of Sydney, Brisbane, Scotland, Bacardi, and so much more. Today we're chatting with the industry vet himself, Mr. Benjamin Carlotto. Amazing accent, amazing guy. And this recent chapter diving into the molecular structures of flavor, sweeteners, and how we actually taste cocktails has put Benjamin into many different cities, and he gets to talk about the composition of cocktails. It's kind of this academic yet cerebral era in Benjamin's career. He's dipped into a lot of different pieces, but he's a hospitality professional through and through. We talk about Rute Gin, we talk about Bacardi, we talk about a lot of different things, and it was really great to catch him while he was in town doing a brilliant little class at Small Victory. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy this great chat with Benjamin Carlotto.
Probably a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Rather actually lazy, but also in other cases quite proactive.
Yeah.
My Australian years was a long time ago, I guess.
Yeah.
So the internet wasn't that popular, nor was it that available as well.
Where about in Australia?
I started out in Brisbane.
Oh, Brisbane.
That's
okay.
where I grew up.
Yeah.
Started in hotels. That was the interesting start, I guess. 4-star, 5-star hotels.
It was so when we talk about childhood in Brisbane, met many Aussies, which I love. What is it? Is it as agrarian as we kind of think about it? Or Brisbane's a relatively metropolitan city, right? Or is it a blend?
City Hall is still called Town Hall.
Really?
It's pretty small.
Yeah,
I mean, It's maybe 1.5 million, I think, at last count. It's a river city. It's a beautiful city.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very small.
I didn't realize.
Yeah,
we don't know much about Australia in the States.
It's growing. I mean, what's the population of Texas at the moment?
Oh God, it's in the millions or
22 million or something.
Yeah,
that's about the total of the entire country.
Oh, geez. Okay.
Yeah, so you got one state's worth of people in one entire country, the size of Brazil.
That's crazy. So when you are in a small, I'm not gonna say small town, medium-sized town, is Sydney the step? When you think about careers and kind of going to more cultural epicenters?
It was. And for me, when I really worked out that I wanted to be in hospitality and pursue that as a career, I knew I had to go to Sydney.
Interesting. Okay.
I jumped around a little bit. I had done a lot of front of house work.
Yeah.
And then I was put into a bar without any bar experience as the manager. I seemed to impress the general manager somehow and took that on. Did some fun things there. And he went on to pursue his career. He'd left Brisbane and went down to Melbourne. And the Olympic Games were around the corner.
Oh, okay.
So he put me in contact with the guy that was looking after accommodation services, and they brought me down to be an accommodation services manager.
Okay.
We would take over universities, kick all the students out essentially, and turn them into mini hotels.
No
so
kidding.
We looked after all of the second-tier athletes, the judges, the coaches, and whatnot.
That's crazy.
That was a crazy time. But
so when you think about if you hadn't taken that step into hospitality, what other things were you perhaps kind of working on? Were you into history? Or were you into science, school subjects at all?
Pretty interesting childhood, I guess. I left high school as a musician.
What'd you play?
A saxophone and Latin percussion.
Alto, baritone, soprano?
Tenor.
And,
okay. And I could pick up the others, yeah.
Tenor guys are better than alto guys. They're cooler, just in my experience. Barry guys and tenor guys are the coolest.
They got those lower depths, I guess.
Yeah, totally.
So that was an interesting thing for me. I played in several bands for a few years after high school.
Yeah.
Never really sort of got to where I wanted to get professionally. Was never really able to make a career out of it.
Yeah.
That position that I was offered to be a bar manager without any experience, that same day, this was an ultimate day for me.
Mm-hmm.
That same day I got offered that position, which was huge.
Yeah.
That night I got a phone call from a mate who worked with a Creedence Clearwater Revival band. So it was a cover band.
A cover band, okay.
But they were touring around Asia and then up to Europe for the next 18 months.
They can do CCR cover band?
They said, we need a saxophone player. Our guys just dropped out. Will you do it? I'm like,
man.
Shit. Really? But here's my music career right there, the start of it in my hands. Or a safe, career in hospitality that I actually
crossroads.
enjoyed. It was a proper crossroads.
Yeah.
And I made that decision and stayed with hospitality.
I'm sure you didn't look back, but
Not
is
at
there
all.
any times where you kind of think, man, if only could have went and been playing saxophone throughout Asia?
Yeah, you know what? Everything that I wanted to achieve as a musician, the what would you say, the lifestyle, the women, and the rest,
stuff,
it happened in hospitality anyway. So
with the proper vehicle such as alcohol too,
Exactly.
so probably better access.
Yeah.
So what was it about? I think everybody goes into the hospitality industry, whether they know it consciously or not, trying to get something out of it. Now, again, whether it's intentional or not, I don't know. But in terms of going into that industry, what did you find you really enjoyed about it?
The diversity.
Yeah. The people diversity?
The people diversity, the different positions that are available to you in hospitality.
Yeah.
In the hotel world, you've got marketing, sales, the whole gambit, housekeeping, maintenance, but also in bars and restaurants and clubs, you've got, food, which really interested me as well.
Yeah.
The marketing of your venues, the management of people was the one thing that really drew me to hospitality.
Do you like people in a general sense?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And being a sincere and a polite sort of person who had pretty good manners, hospitality was pretty easy, and you apply that to not only your guests, but your staff, who I always refer to as my in-house guests.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it was pretty easy for me.
I like that. I mean, there's a warmth to you. I mean, I can tell already. We're getting along all right, at least so far, right? But the hospitality bug, it's funny because I never thought about it. My dad has been in the restaurant business ever since I was a kid. My mom was a waitress for a long time before I went. Did that come from somewhere for you? Music sometimes does. Your parents, it carries down, or the hospitality piece. Did your folks work in the industry at all?
Not at all. It was
Not
a
at all,
completely
really?
new transition, a new thing to me.
Really?
I had no influence whatsoever to move into hospitality.
Oh, that's great.
Apart from just the love of people. I was a theatre major. And
okay. Well, there's some of it, right?
won the cultural awards at school and whatnot. So it was always about the people and always about working with different, interesting people.
Yeah. Which then would lead me to believe that Australia just isn't big enough, and you have to move on to bigger and more diverse markets, yeah?
Indeed. So my trip down to Sydney was great. I did the Olympic Games and moved on. I worked casually in this place called The Basement, which has been there for like 21 years. Mm-hmm. He'd hosted Miles Davis and all the big ones.
Really?
So I was there nearly every night, paying cover charge to go and see all these music. I was like, well, fuck this, I'm just going to work here. I'll just pick up some shifts and then I don't have to pay anything.
Hear the money or hear the music all the time.
Exactly. So I did that for a long time while I was in the Olympics. That went for about 6 months. And then through those connections, I picked up a bar manager's position in a really lucky situation. It was a bar called the Grand Pacific Blue Room.
Okay.
And it became probably the star in cocktail creation in Sydney, in Australia.
No kidding. What year are we talking there, roughly?
2000, 2001, leading in.
Totally different time then.
Long time ago. Yeah. We were making mojitos with the pestle and mortar, and even then the mojito and the caipirinha was unheard of.
Yeah.
Hilarious stuff. Worked with guys like Naren Young, Mikey Enright, Jason Crawley, some big names in the industry, and they're the guys that really taught me my craft. Never really worked as a bartender. In a shift, to be honest with you.
No kidding. So bar managing, just kind of facilitating logistics and stuff like that. Yeah. Did you, when it comes to booze, which is a key factor in this whole thing, did you have a perspective on booze yet? Like, I think as we get older, we start honing in what we like and we start honing in what we want to learn about, right? So for you at that period in Sydney, because this is still in Sydney, was there something you were gravitating towards spirit-wise?
Wine and tequila.
Wine and tequila.
Yeah.
What was it about those two?
Tequila, for me, had a really bad reputation.
Oh,
and
sure. Yeah.
In Australia at the time, I tried to put together a tequila shelf. Just a shelf.
Kidding. A single shelf.
A single shelf. I managed to get 13 different types of tequila. That was it in Australia. When I moved to Scotland, it was a whole new game. But wine was something that I was really interested in. I liked the the high level sort of snobbery around it, that it was really interesting. You could really develop a good palate, and to be able to talk about lots of different things that are going on.
Do you like to translate what is sometimes kind of like techno speak? Do you like being able to keep it like, what's the word, Joe Public? Like make it easy and dissectable or digestible rather?
The last 8 years of my career, I guess, has been doing exactly that.
Yeah.
And I found that most interesting. I'm at a very nice point in my career right now.
Yeah.
It took a little while to get there.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, we're going to have to talk about this seminar here this afternoon, which is very intriguing. There's not a topic we talk about sugar specifically that I get to talk about a lot with people. But so it seems like things are going well in Sydney. Seems like a dream gig, some amazing musicians coming through there. But you were saying you transitioned off into Scotland, yeah?
I did. So I'd opened up 3 different venues in Sydney by that stage as the general manager.
Wow. Same group?
No, completely different.
Different stuff?
Yeah, different. I went into a 3-story place, a high-end 5-star restaurant, a couple other things. But I was ready to leave Sydney. To be honest, I was over the dickheads in Sydney. The people that I had to serve were the guys that were clicking their fingers, waving money in the air, like really just literally those knobs.
That's shit. Like pretentious and kind of stuck up and shit.
So too much money, not enough class.
Got it.
And I was over it.
Yeah.
If I wanted to stay working in those sort of venues, which was, the high end, I had to deal with these people. I'm like, no, fuck this, I'm out.
Yeah. I don't blame you, man.
So it's changed a lot since my days back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, this opportunity came up in Scotland. They contacted me. They wanted someone with fresh eyes and a fresh perspective to come over and open up a nightclub for them.
That's incredible.
And yeah, so that was an interesting part of my life. Edinburgh is a beautiful part of the world.
It is a complete shift in weather, though, if I take it.
I stepped off the plane wearing board shorts.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Yeah, no, that wasn't a good day.
It's jarring, I would imagine, to say the least. How are people, if you could describe kind of a main difference between the two types, because I love the Scots as well, very, very down to earth, very people, you know what I mean, like easy to relate to. For you, did you notice a big difference in the clientele, like right off, kind of shifting into
in the
that?
clientele massively? In my pool of peers, they're almost exactly the same.
Probably
almost
mates, right?
identical.
Just all,
They're the salt of the earth. They're funny bastards. They take the piss all the time. It's the Scots and the Australians have a great deal in common. So I hit the ground running with those guys. That was really cool. That's male and female.
Yeah,
the women would take the piss just as much as the men.
I like that. That's great.
I do too.
We can't do that here in the States.
No,
we're too
close.
fucking we're too rigid, man. It's strange.
Yeah, it's that was cool. I mean, really had to get an ear for their accent though.
Yeah.
That was tough. Yeah. Working in a nightclub, music right up. They've been drinking.
Oh, dude.
That was a hard part. But now I can, without even thinking, I understand them, which is great.
How long do you think that took?
Nearly the whole 2 years that I was there, for sure.
It's tough, dude. I mean, I get it, but I find that not listening helps me listen.
Right.
If I pay too much attention, I get lost in trying to really figure out what the fuck's going on. But as long as I stop listening, then I hear it. It's very strange.
Yeah, look at all of the other factors in their communication. It makes it a little easier.
That's right. Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah,
and I imagine that was a pretty fulfilling chapter too, being in Scotland.
Even more so because after I opened up that nightclub, I opened a place called the Voodoo Rooms, which was an old gin palace. It had several levels. It had a big ballroom, which we turned into a live music venue.
Oh, cool.
There were about 500 people in there.
What kind of music? Local bands?
All over. No, a lot of international acts, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you give me a sense of time and place, anybody that you caught there that you really enjoyed doing live there?
Oh, we have to really sort of go back. I didn't really get to see a lot because I was working all of the time.
Yeah.
Michelle Gardo? A band called Incognito I really love to see. Some of the old hip-hop crews were coming through there. Off the top of my head,
that's killer though.
But it was great. There were people that were coming through London.
Yeah.
That the guy who was part owner was a promoter. He brought them up to Scotland.
That's amazing.
For 1 or 2 nights, and we were one of the only live music venues up there. But that was cool.
It sounded like a really cool place, cool time also to be doing that stuff. Is it easy, and this extends even to I know you're married now, but back in that day, running through, living the musician lifestyle as a bar manager, more or less, did you find kind of when you shifted, was it easy to meet people? Was it easy to build relationships with folks?
Really easy to build relationships with folks. Very difficult to hold down a relationship with a single person.
Yeah.
It's tough. Opening up that place, we had 3 bars and a restaurant. I literally trained my ass off physically to be able to handle the opening weeks or months. And 18-hour days and 7 days a week.
It's just tough to maintain.
It is, and any sort of relationship that you're in at that time pays a pretty big price.
It's back burner stuff, right? You gotta have to.
And anyone who's not in the industry, they don't understand it. They don't get it.
Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Thankfully, my wife does now, but she's worked in brands and in marketing for a long time.
She can relate now,
so she gets it as well. So
it's a little bit more of a jet setter lifestyle now. You don't have to put in an 18-hour day like you did.
Not at all. My life is a lot easier now. It's great.
Once you become more successful, things get easier. It's a nice piece, right?
It's nice how it works out that way.
So we were talking Brisbane to Sydney to Scotland to London. And so you had 2 years in Scotland. Tell me a little bit about the London piece, because it seems like at this point, maybe that's what translated after working in bars there to the brand work. Is that kind of what that chapter was? Is it maybe a transitional one?
Yeah, it was interesting. So when I moved from Sydney to Scotland, nobody really knew who I was. Oh. And for me in hospitality, you have to have a reputation if you're going to do well. People will seek you out. That was something that I was actually proactive about in Scotland. And the only way I really found to be able to raise my reputation or my name was to start to compete in cocktail competitions.
Interesting, okay.
So I concentrated a lot on that and managed to do very well. I traveled around the world, having won quite a few competitions and managed to develop my name there. And that's sort of when I moved to London, which was a very quick transition. All of a sudden I had enough of tiny little Edinburgh and just needed a bigger city. Picked up some work very quickly. Opened up 2 restaurants as a consultant.
That's amazing.
And that's when Bacardi as a company sort of pricked their ears up.
They noticed you.
They had noticed me.
Some good actual experience on the ground running, right? But also some of the bartender stuff. Not the egocentric stuff, but you're out there.
Yeah.
You're performing in a way, right?
Exactly. And that really helped me a lot.
Yeah.
And despite the fact that I am a little bit of a nerd, moving into that sort of position, it wasn't really an ambassadorial role as much as it was an educational role.
Yeah.
We worked with a lot of different clients, a lot of different people. Bacardi back then were, and still are, was a company that was giving back to the industry. So if they did a rum session, they would expect me to cover off 13 different rums minimum.
Wow.
We'd do the category, we'd do the history.
Everything.
We'd do everyone's rum. Of course you'd tangle in Bacardi, but people would respect and be loyal to you giving back to them. Yeah. And that was the same. So we did every spirit, gin, tequila, rum.
It's amazing.
A lot. And then that sort of developed more into other programs as well. I became quite lucky in the last 2 years of working with Bacardi. I really just worked with a very small base of clients. So the Savoy Hotel, I worked closely with him, which was great. Gordon Ramsay, worked with him at all of his properties.
He made his way here. We're all real big fans here in the States.
He did actually. And that was funny. I almost left Bacardi to go and work for him.
No kidding.
I'd actually resigned from Bacardi London, UK, and was moving over to transition with Gordon until America Bacardi picked me up and said, hey, we want to do what you guys did over there here.
Amazing.
And they basically made an offer that I couldn't refuse.
Could not refuse.
Cool. And Miami helped, I have to say.
I bet. Well, I've heard some
Miami.
Little bit of a different shift in people, shift in aesthetic. Women are different. It's all of that.
Oh, yeah, I've never really been involved in such a huge Latin sort of part of society as well. Right. It was an eye-opener for me. But I love Miami. It reminds me of home.
It's an interesting place. So when we talk about the category piece, rum, which has this rich history, gin, which has this rich history, this less terroir, rum's more terroir, tequila, as you're sipping this ocho, that's ground-based, So do you like to learn in that respect, hitting the books, so to speak, and going and getting historical about these spirits?
I do, indeed. I don't like to tell anybody anything unless I've researched it, and I know for a fact that it's a fact.
Oh, that's good.
I'll never work out of just one book. My library at home is extensive. It's actually bordering on ridiculous, but it's it's important to me. I don't ever want to be able to have someone say, "Well, no, that's not right," because that's number one, it's embarrassing. But number two, you're doing them a disservice.
That's right.
So anything you educate, you really should know your shit.
Yeah.
And I've prided myself on that.
How do you feel about, and this is a slight contrast, but so you're in the States now, so you're now like a token American, even though you've never...
Pretty much, I got a green card.
You got a green card, right? So So we're both Americans. We're here in Texas. You seem to appreciate, rightfully so, going to the truth of the matter, going down to exactly how things are, and then kind of working your way up through those details. When you are out, and this doesn't have to be booze-centric, but how do you feel about people talking so topically, not really understanding the details of things? This is a common narrative in the States. It is about booze, but also just in general. How does that appeal to you intellectually? The fact that you're willing to find the truth, but then people are just kind of talking out of their ass.
It's a little embarrassing. I'm embarrassed for them, to be honest. You don't see too much of it. You see elements of it more than a lot of it. The role of the ambassador in the States is a huge thing, or was a huge thing. I honestly believe that word ambassador, and as far as the larger companies see it now, is completely turned up on its head. It's very much a sales-orientated role now. You're not just there to wine, dine, and make people feel good. It is about education, and you have to be on top of that. It's about making those visits, those times, and those situations where you're interacting turn into cases. It's a completely different thing, but it's also a lot of ambassadors are those star tenders wanting to move out of the bars. In my eyes, generally too early.
Sure.
And they are still immature in life, let alone in the industry. But they're good looking, they're popular, they've got generally great chat. And these are all of the things that a lot of companies look for as an ambassador. And that is important.
Fast fashion, though.
That's a good way of putting it.
Depeche Mode, I think, is how that. But it is an interesting thing. I mean, do you see the way in which? So you mentioned that they're changing. What do you look for? Because there's some modern greats still, right? What do you look for from an ambassador? What do you aspire to be?
My team that I've put together just recently for Royal Dutch Distillers, when I looked at my guys in fulfilling those roles, honestly, the one word would be sincerity. Caring, truly caring about what they do and about the people they interact with. For me, an ambassador is somebody that's going to get up at 2:00 in the morning and go down the road with a couple of bottles of booze because their local bar has run out of their product, or they need some ice, or they need you to basically bar back for an hour because they're in the fucking weeds.
Right.
That's the sort of person that's going to do a good job. And that's the sort of person that really is an ambassador, because they're looking after their people. And that's how you garner loyalty. That's how you garner respect. That's how you really grow truly long-standing relationships that will, because you represent a brand or an ethic, they'll always use it.
And that's a reflection of you, though. It sounds like you're describing yourself in a sense.
Took me a while to get there, but I absolutely, I think so. Yeah.
And sincerity, I think that's something that, again, going back to people speaking topically, which that's disingenuous, really. Not learning about the core values or the core details of production, even. Let's just say production. But it seems like sincerity is kind of missing from the States right now. And it's still around in the UK and in Australia, right? So you kind of have to you brought some of this over. How do you try to encourage people to be sincere?
I think by bringing the right sort of people together. So as an operator, I guess, like I said, I had to train in order to open this place, but it's so that I have enough energy to give enough to everybody, be the number one role model in the venue, be able to spend the time and make the time to generally sincerely care about your staff as well as the customer. Hiring the right people, hiring the people that are generally happy people who care about what they do, have a sense of responsibility and timing and work and ethic. You can teach them everything you need to teach them.
Sure.
You can teach them how to carry 3 plates. You can teach them how to clear a table of 10. You can teach them how to make cocktails. I had a girl that worked in a restaurant. She was fabulous. Waiter. She'd never worked behind the bar in her life. My program at the Voodoo Rooms in Scotland was, if you work behind the bar, you also work the floor. You had to come to training every 2 weeks, 2 hours. There was a training. If you missed a training, get a written warning, 3 written warnings, you're out. She went on to be a great cocktail bartender. She won the Apprentice of the Year for Scotland that year. A lot of them had done that sort of thing. A lot of people had come through that program, and it's getting the right person, and you can teach them the rest normally.
Well, it's interesting when I think about people. It seems like they're really on the ball operationally, and they kind of understand how to foster a culture. They understand how to hire the right people and make sure that people want to work where they're working. Where do you learn this though? So typically, if there's that seed or it's genetic, right? Your folks are in the hospitality industry. It comes from somewhere. You can trace it back. But how did you become good? How did you develop a vision for how to be a leader or how to run a business?
It's an interesting question. I guess it's just a progression of life. It's something that people aren't stupid. I guess I wasn't stupid either. When you see what works, being polite, being well-mannered, being patient, being sincere, well, that translates into bucks in my back pocket. There's tips and all the rest of it. So this is a good formula. And it progresses from there in a very basic way.
Yeah.
And again, that translates into how you treat your staff and how you want them to treat people. And then that sort of builds as a culture.
Yeah.
And I think building a culture is a really important part of being an operator or being an influencer in the industry.
Absolutely.
It's a tragedy to walk into a beautifully set bar with amazing glassware, incredible back bar, and the bartender behind the bar's got his head down and he's a fuckwit. Come on, man. It's not hard. Lift your head, smile, say hello, and people can see you're busy. They're not stupid.
Yeah. You got one fucking job,
exactly.
Really, and that's to interact with people.
Exactly.
That's it, dude.
It's crazy.
It is. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
I'm gobsmacked, I guess, to bring it to the colloquial terms, right? So it looks like Bacardi UK to the U.S. as the Bacardi U.S. ambassador in Miami. When does flavor, learning about how sugar works, how fat works, how acids work, because it seems to be a nice narrative to kind of some of the recent chapters of you traveling around doing these classes rather, and complexities of flavor and things like that. When did that start? That level of granularity with flavor start to kind of percolate in your mind?
If I was to sort of look at a date, it would probably be all of my time trying to win cocktail competitions.
I see.
What's going to make my drink stand out from anybody else's? Yeah. How can I build this to be a winning cocktail? And then that sort of spurred or spawned the delight in the things that were really interesting and were not available. There weren't very many books back then on any of this. Now there is a plethora and the internet and the rest. So I also took that responsibility later on in London, working with bartenders who had good chat, who had good style, who knew their hospitality, but wanted to take things further and were interested, but there was nothing really available there. And the good thing about working for Bacardi was they had the funds and the availability for you to spend time researching. I could purchase books, I could spend time researching, I could go and talk to people, take them to lunch, whatever, really sort of get into the nitty-gritty of it all. And that was a wonderful thing to be able to then learn and then share.
Yeah.
And so I guess the more I learned, the more I wanted to share, and the more you don't know, right? So it's, meeting people like Harold McGee and Tony Canigliario, one was American and the other one's from London. They're at the top of their game and they were doing a lot of that sort of stuff. And it's, molecular gastronomy was pretty big back in the early 2000s, and then now that sort of boomed. I think it's almost reached its crescendo now.
I think so. Yeah, it's kind of it's getting back to, with the vinyl resurgence. People listening to music on vinyl, has the food industry's going the same way.
There you go. Yeah.
Just fucking take all the pomp and circumstance out of it. Right?
Indeed.
But I think that's a good point. So you prepping for these cocktail conferences, or not the conferences, rather the competitions. And you have to think about flavors, but you have to get laser focused on three things, right? You're building this drink that has to appeal on so many different levels. Are you sorry, go ahead.
No, please. So yeah, absolutely. So to extend on that, the psychology of the perception of taste, you drink things with your heart and with your eyes before you even put them to your lips.
Totally, yeah.
There's a lot of things that take that into account. Texture, different either composite flavors or complementary flavors sometimes can work well. What I like to call a bit of a up and down sort of railroad of things that are, say, terpenal, so light, bright, very like a lemon zest,
right,
compared to the opposite of that, which is your phenolics, which is maybe your deep, dark, longer molecules that are more pungent, like your bitters, like Angostura bitters, whatnot.
Yeah.
The old-fashioned is an old-fashioned for a reason, right?
It's
got
the
sugar.
Trinity, man.
It's the Trinity.
Yeah.
You know, you've got the bitters, you've got the light torpenal value. It is that roller coaster.
Yeah.
It's got everything, and it's really simple.
And that's it. So it is no surprise that some of the greatest bands ever are trios.
It's true.
Cream, right?
Yeah,
So,
man.
the Jam,
Yep.
right? So it's that same thing that I think you can do it in 3. I think that's the fundamental what you would build off of. You know?
You can't not.
Yeah.
You have to start there. It's very rare that you can accomplish something great without at least having that Trinity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that people go overboard in 6, 8, 10 ingredients?
I think so. It just becomes too, unless you're really, like you say, razor sharp on everything that you're creating and how that makes a difference to every single ingredient.
Yeah.
It can go too far for sure. You do see a fair amount of it. The one thing that really disappoints me, to be honest with you, is cocktail lists. So a cocktail list is supposed to be a communication piece to the customer that doesn't have a bartender in front of them, right?
Right,
As a pure example. When you read a cocktail list, I always look at it from the eyes of my mother, say.
Okay.
She sees a Negroni and it says, I don't know, Ruta Celery Dry, Campari, and Antica Formula. $14. What the fuck is that? Like, she doesn't know. And her expectations are not met.
Holy, that's exactly right. Yeah.
You need to, really use that opportunity as a cocktail list to try and manage people's expectations. Like, no guy generally wants to end up with a pink drink and a flute while his mates are drinking beers. So he's not going to order a cocktail off the list if he doesn't know what that's going to be like.
Right, yeah.
And I mean, that's a big part of hospitality, and it's crazy. And a lot of people still oversee that. So it was things like, menu management and the psychology of the menu and, the perception of flavor and all of these sort of programs that exist in hospitality that nobody was really addressing. And that's where myself and my team really started to focus, both in the UK but also in the States. And, I think we managed to, as a group, give back a lot of work, and we saw it translate, especially in London. Yeah. But all around the world, it's been a pretty interesting journey.
Everyone understands flavors if you can make it simple enough.
Exactly.
It is an internet. We all eat, right? Mm-hmm. We know what salty is. I know what acidic is. So in a way, you've got a little bit of an advantage. You're working with a language that people understand, but cutting through, what is it, techno babble? That's what I call it, right? It's like, yes, you and I know because we have our preference. We have our preferred gin that we want. We know the styles, but then you get into vermouths and stuff, and so is maybe the approach strong, sweet, and smoky? Like, does that make more sense? Do you think that resonates better in that kind of vernacular with customers?
I think so. Yeah, it's like a bittersweet, combination that will set you up for your meal or your day, or at the end of your meal, or light, refreshing, tall, and aromatic. Yeah. Say a mojito. That's how that would sort of look out on a menu, not mint, sugar, lime.
Right. And you have to parenthetically in each one it has to say not too sweet. Every single fucking drink, even if it says better, but it's not too sweet.
Leading into what I'm doing here in Austin today is a seminar on sugar, and this came about from Claire Warner-Smith, myself and her put in 2 separate but similar submissions into Tales of the Cocktail about 4 years ago now, and Philip Duff, who's the director there, put the 2 of us together and said, "Hey, you guys are going down the same path. Why don't you do something together?" And so we built this program on what sugar was. She was very passionate about how bad sugar is for you. Yeah. I was very passionate about how we can still create in our world of cocktails without having to lean on sugar so much, because I understood the bad virtues of sugar. So I've continued, to really do her side and my side, because it's not a stealing of information as far as I see it, and Claire is with me on that. It's more of a sharing of that and making people aware of how bad sugar is for us. It's
a weird thing. We're obsessed with it in the West, man. We put it on everything. We want super sweet everything. You've got flavored just so much. It's just ubiquitous.
It's not their fault. It's 1989. The big sugar companies, they managed to pass legislation that they did not have to put their proprietary sugar down, nor how much sugar was in their products across the board. So nobody knows how much sugar they're eating each day. Yeah, because it's not on the packs, and they don't have to be on the packs. And so, when you look at just things like ketchup or a hamburger, and you don't understand how much sugar is actually in that, and it's
because you think you go into the supermarket Like, this is safe. I'm gonna buy some meat. There's no sugar in that. I'm gonna buy some potato chips. There's no sugar in that. Well, guess what? There's sugar. You're right. It's
sugar in everything.
Fucking everything.
It's ridiculous.
Well, it's just like corn. There was corn everywhere, and we had to find a way to use it in another way. Well, there's sugar in everything. We'll just turn the corn into sugar, and then we can put that in everything.
Many, many different forms of sugar.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people talk about high fructose corn syrup and whatnot. It's not any. It's as bad as sugar. It's probably a little bit worse, but it's not that much worse.
No, it's not that different.
Not really. Fructose is the killer.
Yeah.
Fructose is the one element of sugar. So sucrose, which is sugar, is a disaccharide, meaning it's got two. So you got glucose and sucrose. Glucose and fructose. Fructose, our body can't deal with. Our liver is and our kidneys are organs that are supposed to deal with it.
Yeah.
It literally, your body spikes when you get a high amount of fructose. Insulin is used to lower your blood levels, but that's used to also then put that fructose straight away into fat.
Gotcha.
And then you grow. And
you grow. That's a nice way of putting it. Yeah.
You become larger and unhealthier. And really, like the whole juicing phenomenon is scary as fuck.
Yeah.
People are drinking copious amounts of fruit juices. And without the fiber in the fruit juice, you are just
getting nothing
it on.
Yeah.
Like who would sit down and eat 8 oranges in one sitting? No one, right?
Yeah.
But they'll drink eight
oranges in a glass
of juice.
Yeah, for sure.
And so all of that fructose is going straight into your fat. It's being at your liver and kidneys will deal with sugar before it'll deal with alcohol. Alcohol's a poison.
Yeah, a good one, but yeah.
Indeed. It'll immediately deal with the fructose and turn that into fat storage. So fiber is something that will help the body take that fructose through our system and for us to pass it.
Right.
So if you do have fiber with your sugar, it's not too bad. Eat an apple, it's okay.
Yeah.
Juice an apple? No. Slap it out of your hand. It's not the same thing. And in the liqueur world, in the spirits world, there's a lot of sugars in cocktails. There's a huge amount.
Rum. There's a lot of back-sweetened rum, man.
There is. I
mean, that's usually glucose, I think, or sucrose rather, but still, it's just added in there.
It's an interesting topic. And the more we learn about it, the better we can all be from both sides of the bar.
Sure.
Responsible service of it and also the consumption of it.
When it comes to health, it seems like you have this parallel passion for health. Now, that should be implicit to everybody. Everybody should care about their health. But on a scientific level, it sounds like you've done quite a bit of work on that. So your interest in health, does that stem from your own personal health, family, just a general interest?
To be totally honest,
yeah.
I fucked myself up pretty badly when I was younger. A lot of drugs, a lot of bad decisions and all the rest of it. And really, in the industry that we're in, and I've been in it for 22 and whatever years now, there's a lot of alcohol consumption, and your body does not deal well with that poison, not in the amounts that most of us consume it at.
Sure.
So, to counterbalance that, to be able to be a functioning alcoholic, I guess you would say, I learned a lot about my body, and I learned a lot about, going to nutritionists and speaking to people who know exactly what's going on. And supplements have literally saved my life, to be honest.
What are a few because I supplement as well. Omega fatty acids, I take those. What are a few things you find are pretty helpful for you?
Complex B12s and Bs, especially magnesium, potassium for the alcohol. Your D is important, even though I get plenty of it in Miami.
Yeah.
Again, your omegas, but getting them from the right sources as well.
Sure.
There are a lot of vitamins on the shelves here in America that are absolute rubbish for you. They're full of fillers. They're full of all kinds of ridiculous shit without anywhere near enough of the supplement that you actually need. So be wise, do your research, and work out exactly what is needed for your body. Right. And you can go and get tested. You can go and see people that can tell you exactly what you're deficient in. Exactly. That's the word I was looking for.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. No, that's great.
I mean, I'm just here to help. That's really the facilitator, right?
And so it's exactly that. So being aware in life and in love and in everything you do is only ever going to help you. So that's definitely a part of me being giving back to the industry now.
I think it's important. I mean, you have some stories, you've had some experience with it. You're recently married too, so I mean that is even another reason to keep your shit like healthy. You know what I mean? It really is. Like, you can only be a good partner if you're alive.
It's the truth, right? And healthy, mind, body, and soul.
Absolutely. So traveling as much, and we'll talk about this most recent chapter with Royal Dutch Distillery in one moment. But you're traveling around a bit now. Would you say you're traveling around more now than you had been previously in your career?
Yes.
Yeah.
Working in London, I traveled a lot. I traveled a lot internationally. I worked with the Soho House Group, so I used to travel to all of their properties. When I came to America, it was pretty heavy. Working with Royal Dutch was pretty full on for a while.
Yeah.
I literally, in the month of May and June last year, probably spent 6 nights in my own bed. It was out of control. But we were just launching a brand, and that's what it takes. To make a national footprint on a brand new product.
Got to get
out there, man.
Socialize it.
That's it.
Sorry, go ahead.
So things are a little calmer now. I do have a team that I'm building that is doing that element that I no longer am responsible for.
Yeah.
From a day by day part of it. The travel is good. Look, we're launching here in Texas.
That's amazing.
3 big cities. Dallas and Houston were the 2 weeks before now. This week we're in Austin. We're meeting with distributors. We're telling them all of our stories and putting liquids to lips and trying to get them excited about our product. And it's been really, really successful so far.
You're on tour, man.
You're on tour, right?
You're totally on tour. You think you stepped away from music, and perhaps you did literally, but you're still on tour.
It's crazy.
You're selling you know what I mean? You're selling a song. You're playing to an audience, just a different stage.
It's true.
Are you finding, what are some of the things that you do to make sure that traveling so much, you really keep healthy and you don't lose yourself to the road?
It's easy to lose yourself to the road. You have to stay active while you're out there. You have to look after your sleep, especially as I'm getting older. I can't get away with 5-hour, 6-hour nights all in a row in a week anymore. That's not on. Eating healthy, it's too easy to let your diet go out the window when you're out having dinner, lunch every day, entertaining other people.
And the booze part, all the calories and booze, people don't ever think about that.
It's true. And traveling, to be honest with you, was why I'm carrying probably an extra 20 pounds than I should be.
Okay.
It's hard to stay on top of that.
Yeah.
It's just a consistency thing with fitness, really, that's a difficult one. But you have to make those lifestyle choices and you have to stay on top of it. What you put in your body is what you are. And that's, I guess, the easiest sentence to remember and help you.
I mean, it's a pretty beautiful way to put it. I would say shit in, shit out, but yours is much better.
That's pretty much it, though, right?
Yours is a little more nuanced, I would say, a little bit cleaner. But so you've got some amazing gins, the Rute gin, and this is kind of the recent chapter with Royal Dutch Distillers. You guys, it's part of a much larger portfolio of stuff, but you have these 3 gins that are just arriving in Texas now. Do you guys have a distributor already for these?
We do. So with Southern Wine and Glaciers,
great. Okay.
They're going to distribute us here in Texas.
That's amazing.
It's been a slow build. We are focusing on 5 major cities around America. It's interesting you say we are a smaller part of a larger family.
Is that fair?
It is.
Yeah.
So De Kuyper is probably one of the oldest spirits companies in the world, dating back 300 years now, still family owned.
That's incredible.
They have the De Kuyper liqueurs.
Yeah.
Somebody in the family sold the rights to De Kuyper liqueurs to the States in the 1980s. So De Kuyper here in America is nothing to do with De Kuyper in the rest of the world.
That.
So the quality is completely different.
Okay.
Everything is perfectly natural in Europe and the rest. Here it's very, very
I know exactly where you're going.
different.
Going back to that sugar talk.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, that's actually enlightening, because I didn't want to say, well, it's really tastes kind of artificial, Benjamin, here. But, but all right, that makes sense.
A lot, yeah. And De Kuyper sort of sits in that train, I guess, here in the States.
Yeah.
It's
not
a
optimal.
plastic flavor.
Yes.
Let's call it that.
I like
so
that.
Mark De Kuyper, who is 11th generation, he's going to be the next one to take over the company.
That's incredible.
He came to the States to launch Mandarin Napoleon, which is a Mandarin-style liqueur. So we have that. We have Ruta. It was his brainchild to have a celery gin.
What is, as a gin maker, tell me, how are you guys making a celery gin?
Interesting, right? So Simon Ruta, who's our founder, 1872, he was using all kinds of different really interesting ingredients in his products.
Yeah.
He was a bit of a creative
mad
artist,
scientist.
I guess. Mad scientist is a good way to put it. So his Geneva would have roasted nuts in there and carob and all kinds of things. Celery leaf is what he's been using in lots of different botanicals,
Okay.
distillates for many years. So when Mark went to our most recent master distiller, Miriam Hendricks, he's like, "What about celery? How do you feel about celery?" She's like, "Yeah, of course, we've been using celery for ages.
Yeah.
Let's just focus on that and move into it." And it's really resonated with the American market. It's done a great many things for a lot of, let's call it, brunches around the country.
That's right, yeah.
Your red snappers, your twist on the Bloody Mary, and those savory notes have really worked well in a lot of other cocktails. It's truly an interesting product.
Yeah.
We've done a lot with it, and the Geneva, the Geneva.
Yeah.
I've spoken to everyone back in the Netherlands. They don't give a shit. You can call it Geneva. You can call it Geneva.
They don't care.
There's all kinds of ways.
Just give me a glass of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Ours is really interesting. Ours has a lot of different ingredients going into it, and it's sort of unheard of here in the States. The general Geneva is really a malted spirit with a juniper flavor, and that's about it. Ours is completely different. And
more robust, more dynamic?
More robust. It's got a much more fruitier sort of note to it, a great deal more complexity with the carob, which is your alternate to chocolate, I guess, in a health food store. Your roasted nuts, hazelnuts, walnuts, and whatnot. It's a really interesting, it's, as David Wondrich would say, and he took our product and mixed with it and did a little video for us. He's like, this spirit, the Geneva and Old Simon is like your gin for your whiskey drinkers. It makes that bridge, that transition between your whiskey and gin very well because of that malted spirit.
Right.
He truly believes that the Martinez is to the martini what Cassius Clay is to Muhammad Ali. It's the same fucking thing. It's just a little different.
That's amazing, yeah.
And he's got a whole, background of stories and research that sort of, goes into that. And Geneva was literally the one spirit that was being imported into America in huge amounts back in those times. So when you look at the old books and they say gin, it was more than likely a Holland or a Dutch style gin that they were reaching for.
I didn't realize that.
Not a lot of people realize that either. And
because the flavor is far darker and more brooding.
Very much so. Yeah. When the English got a hold of Geneva, that's when things changed up.
Got a little stuffy.
Yeah.
A little refined.
And a little... They had a prohibition in London in the 1700s.
Yeah.
The gin craze got out of hand. If you remember, there were more people dying than being born. It's the only time it's ever happened.
Holy
in the history
shit!
of
I didn't realize it was that.
Yeah, it was
that
horrible.
drastic.
Mother's ruin, all of that. That's where it all came from.
Okay.
It was basically your national duty to drink gin, because all of the guys were coming back from the war. They were going out into the farmlands. They were growing their grains. They would sell their grain, but they'd have a surplus of stock. And so what they would do with their grain is essentially make something that's not going to go off, that you could use as a fuel, that you could sell. So they had this spirit. And what would you do with this spirit? Flavor it with juniper, which was the natural sort of flavor of the time, and sell it as gin. And poverty was everywhere. The population was in a bad state. All you really did back then was get drunk and fuck.
That's right.
So prostitution and thievery and the rest of it was in a bad way. So gin has a lot to answer for. Thankfully,
I like that.
It's very different nowadays.
I like that we're complicit in a lot of vices and a lot of bad illicit behavior. It actually makes me feel kind of good.
It's true.
Just
We've
a
come
little
a long way.
Yeah, we have come a long way. Well, so you're heading to Small Victory here at 3 p.m. Wonderful spot, and Josh is doing a great work at that spot. You'll love it. I don't know if you've been there before, but it's so quaint and kind of almost like a place you'd go to have an affair.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah,
that piece is really amazing. And so you're going to be talking about the sugar topic that we've kind of talked about and over sugaring and stuff, right? Well, when are you heading back to Miami after this? Or do you have a Dallas?
I'm off to speak to the distributors tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's the main reason we're in town and doing this tour, is to get the distributors to understand our products and to be able to sell it, give them the stories. But while I'm here, I might as well do what I can to get some people together and train on an interesting seminar.
I think it's going to be. I'm very health's important to me. And I like that you're thinking about that. And you can drink and be healthy.
You can.
Absolutely.
Moderation.
Very, very sure of that. So I've got one kind of final question for you. And this one I have no idea where you would go with it, which is great. I'm so glad. So you are at, let's say, the Savoy, okay, enjoying whatever kind of cocktail you want, whether it's a martini, you want a whiskey neat or whatnot. And anybody living or deceased can be sitting next to you and you can have a conversation with them over a couple fine drinks. Who might that person be?
Wow. That's a big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The musician in me wants to sit next to Miles Davis.
I was wondering, yeah.
The cocktailian in me wants to sit next to probably Hemingway, right? Interesting cat. He's done a lot in his life. I think Churchill would be an interesting cat to sit next to.
Oh, man.
That guy had accomplished a lot at a very young age.
Yeah.
Was already published in his early 20s. Went on to rule the free world, essentially, as prime minister and changed the world.
Yeah.
Through his leadership. Incredible.
And he loved gin.
And he drank a shitload of gin. Yeah, absolutely. That would have to be my answer.
I think that would be such a lovely, quippy exchange.
Yeah.
I couldn't keep up with him.
For so many of his quotes, they're hilarious.
That's pretty brilliant stuff. Well, Benjamin, thank you so much for spending some time on this afternoon to come sit down, chat, and sip some tequila, which I feel only will get rid of this perhaps onsetting cedar fever you might be experiencing.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah,
this has been an absolute pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. We'll have to keep in touch for sure.
Indeed.
Safe travels. Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Well, there we have it. The industry vet, the gentleman, the scholar, the teacher himself, Mr. Benjamin Carlotto. We're talking about Rute Gin, a new gin in Texas. We talk about Bacardi. We talk about Scotland. The man is well traveled. He's distinguished. He's articulate. And it was just a pleasure to get to kind of share these chats with him and learn about this amazing life that he's led so far that now has brought him to Miami for even more new frontiers for him. So, Benjamin, thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with me. I wish you all the best of luck in all of your scholarly pursuits. And thank you for listening to Show to V with Mike G. No matter how much you think you do, in fact, have in common with Mr. Sam Malone of Cheers, or if you're thinking, man, I don't know if I can do another season of House of Cards, it's already so close to reality as it is, please keep dancing.